Welcome to Command Control Power, Apple Tech Support and Business Talk, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. For over a decade, we've released weekly episodes featuring real-world stories from the front lines of tech support, in-depth discussions about managing clients and businesses, and conversations with fellow consultants and industry partners. What you're about to hear is a best-of episode originally broadcast on October 21st, 2015, a classic installment from our archives. To hear our latest, regularly recorded episodes, you'll need to subscribe to our Patreon-exclusive podcast feed. Designed specifically for Apple IT professionals, this private feed dives deeper into the challenges of running your consultancy, supporting your clients, managing staff, and maintaining large device fleets. For a modest monthly contribution, you'll gain access to a rich library of bonus content, exclusive interviews, and insights you won't find anywhere else. To subscribe, simply visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support.
So I had some experience last week with a new product for mounting an Airport Extreme or time capsule. I was looking up the old H-squared mounts. I don't know if you guys have ever used those in the past, but they used to be kind of like my go-to mount for any of the Apple Wi-Fi gear, and found that they were not available. Did some research on Amazon and found this product called the Airbase from Giros Design. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but it's GIROS-design.com.
It's a Greek firm.
Yeah. Giros Design.
Giros Design.
So it's they have some really, really cool products, very well designed.
Look at that. Wow.
Pretty slick, right? They're executed really well. The tolerances look great. They fit all the Apple gear really well as far as fit and finish, and just really easy to work with. The one I used was the Airbase, which mounts the Airport Extreme or time capsule.
Sweet.
And it looks really good. It fits really good, fits really well. It has lots of different mounting options, very flexible. You can either mount it to like a single or dual gang, like a wall box, basically, if you want to kind of have it integrated, or just use the included anchors and screws to kind of just like mount it into the wall, through normal screw holes. You can mount it, vertically, horizontally. You can even do a ceiling mount. They make a separate product called the Air Guard, which is like a little plastic piece that kind of slips over to kind of hold the Airport Extreme or time capsule in place, whether you're doing it sideways or upside down.
I see.
But yeah, really easy to install, really great to work with. And just in my experience, it really helped because what we did was we moved the Airport Extreme from like basically the floor of a closet where we had an outlet, to a ceiling where we had an outlet and an Ethernet jack, already there. And it actually extended the network outside where this client needed it to be for like their outdoor registration table for events. So just, this one $30 product or whatever it was, just fixed the wireless and really improved things and also made it more secure.
Moving it from the lower area to the ceiling area just helped that wireless signal?
Yeah, it was actually
nice.
Like from one side of the room to the center of the room. So that was, it was moving it physically a little bit closer to where they needed it, but also getting it up above like anybody who's going to be in that room. So it's not, the signal's not traveling like through a bunch of bodies through the walls and stuff like that. It was just right out in the middle and, just gave it a clearer shot to the outside. So yeah, it really improved things quite a bit. So I highly recommend it. Giros Design or Giros Design or whatever, GIROS-design.com. Check them out.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. That's a really stylish product. On the heels of that, did you see someone had made the point a couple of weeks back on the internets how inconvenient it is with the new Airport Extreme to get at the spring clip releases for the Ethernet jacks and how they're positioned one on top of one another, and how from a design standpoint it would be so much easier if they took all the Ethernet jacks and just rotated them 90 degrees.
Right, so I saw that.
Yeah, it's such a brilliant idea, and I'm sure they thought about it in R&D, and it would be so much easier if they had done that.
Or what about a fourth Ethernet LAN jack?
That would be nice.
you know?
Yeah, why did it have to be different? I mean,
Yeah,
like
why does it have to be 3 instead of 4?
I know. You're replacing like a crappy old Linksys, it's got 4 ports and they're all full, 4 LAN ports, and you throw in this awesome new device and it's got 1 less port, one fewer port,
I've run into situations where we put it in like, oh crap, we just got that one extra cable that we need to plug in. Now we got to get a switch.
Right, you need a third-party switch, not to boot. Not even you can't have an Apple. There's no Apple switch. So
right,
yeah,
right. And so we're relying on some sort of like a little Netgear gigabit switch, and that's blue. That doesn't really fit with the color schema. So
right.
Take that, Johnny Ive.
Exactly.
By the way, those air guards I just checked, they're available on Amazon as well for $15. So,
yeah, it's a great product. Well, the air guard is a little like plastic piece that kind of holds it in place. It's the
right, the air base. Excuse me, that's $30, and then the air guard is $15.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so decent pricing, because I remember the H-guard stuff was right around that mark. Interesting, though, there used to be a product called the Airbase from Griffin, I think, that was like a mount for the little airport expresses. Do you guys remember that?
The first time I started Googling that, when you mentioned Airbase, I saw Griffin come up in my autocomplete. So I don't remember it, but...
Yeah. I have
Your
a few
computer
kicking
does.
around. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's a great product. I should mention they actually sent me one for review purposes, and I did promise to discuss it on the show. Of course, I didn't promise a glowing review, but I had a great experience with it. So, I'm just reporting my experience. But thank you to Jiro and his friends for sending this over to me. Gyro, whatever his name is. Really, really great product, though.
So since the last time we got together, Apple had their product announcements this past Thursday, and this may be the actual working show title, From Elated to Deflated. So while it was great to see this beautiful 5K display on the iMac, I think we were all anticipating the release of these Mac Minis, and it was quite disappointing.
Oh man, I remember the message I got from you that day, Jerry, that you were the first one to tip me off to the lack of quad core. It was like a play-by-play as you were eagerly anticipating these designs coming out and being able to be ordered, and it really was elated to deflated. That was the trend of your text message.
Well, I was actually, I mean, you just sort of, you've been looking at these products for years and years, and you sort of connect the dots, and I would love to take full credit for that. But I was actually tipped off by our good business associate over at, we'll give props to him, at the Apple Store in New Haven, Connecticut, Brian Grossman, the one of the business team, and he was the one who actually tipped me off. Actually, I got a phone call, so I must be well connected. But I felt thankful for that. But I was flabbergasted.
Yeah, I didn't believe you at first. I got your message, and I was in the middle of doing some other stuff, and I immediately opened Command T, and I went to the Apple site. I'm like, I got to look at this again. I can't believe Jerry's right about this.
That's so funny that you said that. I did the same. I was like, that can't be right. But alas.
Yeah, I mean, so that's got to be the biggest controversy. I mean, actually, I guess I would say, among the general public, it's you're going to say it right, soldered RAM.
Yeah, soldered RAM.
Yeah, that's the other one. But I mean, that's less of an issue because they haven't been too egregious with their RAM pricing in the last couple of years. So it's not horrible. Although it used to be possible. I think there was a model that would go to 32 gigs, wasn't there? I thought was it the 2012? Let me just double check Mac Tracker here. No, I guess the Max was 16 there too. So yeah. I mean, it's not a huge loss, really. I mean, it would have been nice to get more RAM.
I think I was reading that stuff and I was like, I kind of agree. I can go with just bumping it up right off the bat to the 16 gigs, and even, which we'll get to, I'm sure, even the lack of server. I was like, oh, you know what? It's just an app that you can download after the fact, but. The whole quad core and just a lot of things started to domino effect as we started to hear more about it.
Yeah, it was like one piece of bad news after another, kind of.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just on the RAM pricing, I think it is fairly competitive. I'm just looking up the pricing from my typical sort of RAM vendor, and I should mention by name if you call Johnny over at Lifetime Memory, it's a great
Johnny.
Well,
Johnny or Vito sometimes answer the phone as well.
Gyro.
That's funny. I got a vendor. Their names are Dave and Vinny. It's kind of similar.
Well, so Johnny's name came up on the lists recently as a couple of people's preferred go-to guy. Like he's it's just like, does this work in this model, that kind of thing, and and you kind of just want to get some gut check on some memory you want to install somewhere, and he's great at being able to clarify things like that. So. Anyway, pricing tends to be very good there, and Apple's RAM is not all that much more expensive. So there's something nice about not having to crack the case open and deal with RAM and potential ESD issues and stuff like that. Just order it from the start. So that's a non-issue for me personally, but the lack of quad core I think is just weird.
There were some really funny remarks that came across the Twitter feed over the last couple of days. There's a guy out of Maine by the name of Matt Bonney, and he made the observation. He said, "So it's really just a headless MacBook Air with a 5,400 RPM drive." Right. And he's really not too far from the truth. And then another person on the Twitter feed, a guy by the name of Tony Smith, pulled out from the repair manual. It says, "Do not." This is for the Mac Mini. It says, "Do not make repairs yourself, because making adjustments or performing procedures may result in hazardous radiation exposure."
Oh my god!
The only thing missing, and you will die a horrible death.
Right.
But that's been pulled right out of the manual, so that's legit. So wow,
yikes!
So have we've been Sherlocked? I would imagine, right? I mean, in a left-handed Sherlock with this machine. I mean, the tea leaves are on the wall or in the cup.
I don't
I don't know why they'd be on the wall. If you took a cup and threw it against the wall and it Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, you're reading the tea leaves on the wall. I think that's a good, to be a fly on the wall too. In that,
it could be handwriting on the wall too.
Right, exactly. Well, I don't look at it as that dire. I think, my reading of it after some, I don't know, some people reported this that the quad core chip in the Haswell processor line uses a different socket than the dual core chips do. And therefore, Apple would have needed to make two different versions of the logic board. And I guess, I don't know, my thinking is they probably still will make a second version of the logic board, but obviously they want to get, something out sooner than later. I mean, geez, it's been 2 years. So,
right.
And I think also that gives them something like 6 months from now or whatever, kind of a mid-cycle update time frame would be to promote. And it's going to be one of these kind of almost Orwellian things where it's now we offer quad core. Isn't that exciting? And it's well, yeah, but you had that all along and you took it away only to offer it again later. So it's,
yeah. I have to agree. I mean, I think it's sort of a transitional release of their product. I mean, you would think that maybe with the Intel Broadwell coming down the line that we'd see a Mac Mini with a Broadwell processor. I mean, what are you guys thinking on that?
Yeah. Oh, I think so. I think you're right. I think that they probably intended to do that all along, and I guess Broadwell got delayed, right? Quite a while. So
yeah. So your thought of they had to put something, or they wanted to put something out in the 2-year mark, so to speak, and we will see it as a sort of transitional product, and they'll release a quad core, and the people will go crazy over it, you know, and that's the way it goes with Apple.
Right.
I mean, that is possible. The other thing that I think is more likely is that it's a message that's loud and clear that this product is no longer intended to be a designated server-based product. And if you want something really beefy for enterprise, you're just going to have to go to a Mac Pro. I don't know.
Well, that's the real question, because I think that's probably where most of us use these machines is servers. I mean, there's a few different factors there. I mean, there's besides the processor, obviously that's a major factor, but it's also the storage space and the I/O in general. And so the new machines have, at least on the high-end model, it's only the high-end model that has the PCIe-based flash storage, which is amazingly fast compared with even SSDs in my experience. Mm-hmm. Like the same storage that's in the MacBook Air and the Retina MacBook Pro and the Mac Pro and all that. And I think that can make a really big difference depending on the client. So I have a number of clients actually that have relatively small data sets where they have just storage on the internal drives, whether they're it's mostly file sharing, but in some cases it's, a carry-out mail server, for example, things like that. where I think the flash storage, the PCIe based flash storage, will offer significant performance improvement over even like an SSD, but certainly over some of the clients have. Many of them have spinning disks, storing their internal data. So I think that can counterbalance some of the drawbacks to not having quad core.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that it's right. I'm kind of going with that and thinking I'm not so sure it's kind of pushing away from being at least a single function server. In a lot of ways, the high end machine with external storage, you got Thunderbolt 2 connected to a Promise RAID. And I think you still have a pretty decent device going out there. I don't know that I'm thinking that Apple's saying this is not going to be used for server anymore. I'm just, I'm still thinking about it. I understand what you're saying, Jerry, and I kind of get it and some of the things that they have changed, and it seems like they're pushing in a different direction. But I'm not sure I'm totally convinced yet.
Right.
Well, but it becomes just a little bit more dicey when you start to recommend that product for a client who needs server services. Someone that may want to run a mail server or a CalDAV or a contact CardDAV and do file sharing. You're basically you can only recommend a machine that doesn't have a quad core processor and really isn't good at multi-threading. So.
Yeah, that's the real concern, I think. And that may just depend on the number of services. Well, it does depend on the number of services and the number of users, I think, specifically. But, where that comes into play, I think, is the real question. And, I mean, have you guys got your hands on any of these yet or seen any, field reports? I don't even know if they're
well,
really...
our friends over at Mac Mini Vault, they've already done a teardown on their blog, so you can actually get to that pretty easily by going to the Mac Mini Vault and just clicking on the blog, and you could actually see the teardown. Yeah,
some good reports there for sure. And I think Geekbench has some specs that were released as well to just get into like raw numbers, but. Obviously the multi-core performance that's way down. It's like 50% or something like that. It's I guess what you'd expect going from quad to dual core, right?
Yeah,
half the cores and 50% performance. What a shock! Yeah, but that's the real problem, I think. And so where does that what's the tipping point? Is it 5 users, 10 users? Is it if you're doing just file sharing and VPN, is it going to manage just fine with basically no impact, or is it is it going to struggle even with just file sharing services turned on?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think in my own mind, and you guys might be able to take back in with your client base. How many users are you supporting max with these Mac Mini servers? I mean, if you're not supporting more than, 5-10 users in a typical office with a single Mac Mini server, is it going to affect you that greatly? I mean, I don't have too many, let's say 20 to 30 user scenarios where they're just relying on a single Mac Mini server. Do you guys?
That's a good point.
No, point well taken. I mean, I don't think we should really belabor it too much longer, but it's just
too late for that.
But it's just a question of what was Apple's intention. The other thing that I just wanted to point out for those of you who haven't seen this yet is there's security screws on the bottom now. These T6 Torx screws to keep you out. Soldered RAM. I don't know. It doesn't.
Yeah, but that's just an overall design trend. I think that's speaking of the writing being on the wall. I mean, every new design Apple's released has been less and less accessible and upgradable. Even their desktop machines, like their premier desktop, the iMac. It's like it's even thinner and lighter. Well, it's a desktop. It doesn't have to be thin and light, but it frustrates us because we can't throw more RAM in there. I mean, we have a perfectly good machine sitting unused that's got a silly little 5400 RPM spinning disk and 8 gigs of RAM, and you're like, this would be an awesome machine if I had more storage and it was flash storage and I had double the RAM in there. But you can't do anything about it, I mean, it's been that way for a long time. I don't think the Mac Mini is any exception. What seems silly about it is the fact that it's they haven't slimmed the case down or changed anything fundamentally about the design. It's just we're just going to solder the RAM on now and put different screws in. Screw you guys,
Yeah, I know. I would have liked to. I mean, that's just aesthetically, but I would have liked to have seen a new design that would have just changed. I think They could have changed things a little bit, made people feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy, as we say about it. But we're beating down on it so hard because nothing else changed. I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens with the next release. We do, I think, all agree that this is sort of a transitional piece of hardware.
Right. So if you are looking for quads, some of the stores have end of life, so now would be the time to get them. They're actually going for pretty high numbers on eBay, so not a good place to get them. And right now, the Apple store, the refurb store, hasn't had them for the last several days, but with any luck, we'll see some refurbs from 2012 go in there. So there's still some opportunity to pick these machines up if you think you're going to need one, either for your office. Now, I was waiting. I have a 2011 Mac Mini server with a dual 500 gig drives, and I replaced one of them and was using a solid state for a boot. And I've got a Drobo 5D off of that with a Thunderbolt connection, and I just needed to buy a little bit more time. I'm ready to move into a Mac Pro, but I need a little bit. I need to, let's see, go out at least 2 or 3 years, hopefully, with a machine. So I actually picked up today a single quad core 2.3 from a store in New Haven, Apple store, that had an end of life one for around $650. So not a bad deal.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. You compared it to the Mac Pro. I mean, that's the other question that comes up when you're considering, like, what's that tipping point? When do you lean toward a Mac Pro? And I think, maybe, I don't know, throwing a number out there, 10 users and up, I think is maybe a good number. But looking at the differential in price, I mean, a quad core, refurb Mac Pro starts at over $2,500. For, a 3.7 gigahertz processor, quad core. Now that's a Xeon processor, and there's many reasons why the Mac Pro is better than a Mac Mini. It's just using server grade components, error correcting RAM, and stuff like that. So there's obviously, major reasons to go with Mac Pro over Mac Mini, but you can get 2 or 3 Mac Minis, for that price. So it kind of makes the question a little bit difficult. And I guess one concern is like, well, is Apple just trying to encourage people to go for the Mac Pro that otherwise could have gotten by with the older Mac Mini?
Certainly a possibility. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. It's like them taking out the 32 gig iPhone or iPad for just going 16 to 64, making that decision that much harder for people. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, I agree. Let's not belabor it necessarily, but there's some good, chatter going on here. Just to linger on this for a couple more minutes, maybe. Some just anecdotal things in the chat room. It seems like in general, people tend to agree that the CPU may not really be a bottleneck for these machines, in the cases where they're deployed. It seems like people are reporting. Storage space is really storage I/O is more of a bottleneck.
Right.
So I don't know. I just kind of getting a general sense, put a finger to the wind kind of thing. I think that's, I don't know. It's not as big a deal, I think, as originally it looked like to me.
Yeah. Possibly.
Okay.
All I know is Jerry was very disappointed.
I'm going to be selling my 2011 quad core on eBay in a couple of days. So
it sounds like you're going to make money on this deal, though. Overall, that's the crazy part. Like, these machines really hold value, huh?
Well, it seems like it is right now, yeah, because of the fact that you can't get one through a lot of channels, and maybe people aren't checking with the stores yet or looking hard enough. But the ones that are actually selling used on eBay are commanding a pretty solid price.
So now I'm getting it. So you have this, you have an incentive here to spread the fear, uncertainty, and doubt about these new machines, so you can inflate the price on the old one. I guess.
Possibly, but we've got a lot of wise ACNs listening, so they're not fooled by me.
I don't think it's working though, Jerry. I drove past an Apple store recently, and I saw a line around the block. Must be for the new Mac Minis. So I don't know what you're talking about. I think they're really going to be really popular.
Nice try, Mr. Zigmont.
So what do you do if you don't want to have a Mac Mini? Is there another option? Well, I think there might be. If you don't want to have a Mac Mini at your client's site, but they still need to have server services. That's a delicate lead in to our sponsor.
There's a great option. MacMiniVault.com.
Tell us about something you like, Joe.
I'm going to tell you guys about something I like. I like MacMiniVault.com, and I'll tell you why. I mean, we all know the benefits of a co-location facility. These guys know Mac, and they are experienced at hosting Mac Minis in particular. Planting a seed here, they're actually also about to be hosting Mac Pros, but we'll table that for now, and we'll include an interesting photo in the show notes. But MacMiniVault.com has been doing this for a number of years. They have a world-class data center, actually 2 data centers, and they offer a place where you can host your Mac Mini. And we have all seen these clients with Mac Minis in a closet, on a shelf, collecting dust with cables everywhere. The dog is chewing on some of the cables. The cable person is there to change the modem out, and knocks over the power adapter for the Mac Mini and pulls the whole thing off the shelf. Horror stories, right? You don't want these things in your client's facility. You want to have them in a secure data center where they're physically secure, where they are taken care of, where the power is redundant, where the internet connectivity is redundant, and where you have literally someone standing by ready to help you if you need remote hands or any kind of hardware help in person, where you have fast remote access and you can administer it remotely. And Jerry, why don't you tell us a little bit more about, I know you have a client that you've had there for a while now.
Well, yeah, I mean, and just to tell you a little bit more about Mac Mini Vault, there's a number of different plans. So if you've got a client that needs to have 50 users on board, or you've got a client that needs to have 5 users that need remote access to, let's say, a FileMaker Pro server, and they need to be mobile and they need to get at that server all the time, this is a perfect solution for you. I have a client who runs a medical office. They're plastic surgeons, and here in the Northeast, we were inundated the last couple of years with a couple of hurricanes and pretty much took their operation out. And one of the interesting things about their business is that they don't necessarily have to do a lot of their work from their office. They can meet their clients at different locations, and all they really need to do is get at their Mac practice database. And they said that the condition was untenable after they had experienced their last outage in their last hurricane. So I looked around and basically looked at the landscape for other Mac Mini co-location services that were there, and there's not that many, and there's a few that are popular, and this is probably one of the top. And this was extremely affordable for us, and also seemed extremely reliable. So they've been actually running with Mac Mini Vault now for 2 years. And extremely happy. We never have outages. The service is always up, and like Murphy's Law, we haven't actually had to roll over to the co-location and go live yet. But when we do, we're absolutely ready. So we do a nightly backup to the Mac Mini Vault co-location, and so we're ready to go live at any time should their services be knocked out. So it's a really solid solution for them, and it's very affordable, and it's something that even a small business can handle because they have a number of different plans that you could look at.
That's excellent to hear. I think you actually were the one that originally turned me on to them and just doing some research, because I had a client that simply had a server that ended up being used by an employee every time they would come into the office. So it was just atrocious, because every time that person sat down, they would use the machine and they would drag down other people connecting to it. And we finally just had to put a big stamp on it that said, "Server, do not touch." But short of that, I mean, just having it hosted elsewhere, protected, maximum uptime. I'm actually working on them right now to try and get them to go over to Mac Mini Vault so that they can just kind of get out of that scenario. As a small office, sometimes it's difficult to have a server just sitting in there collecting dust. So this is a perfect solution for them.
Yeah, clients don't really understand sometimes, like the reason that you have a machine sitting there that no one's using. It looks like it's wasted or something, but they don't realize it's actually responsible for running their business. And when that person who's just going to casually sit down and play some Minecraft on it or whatever, and then reboot when they're finished, is really going to disrupt things. So
just a bit.
Yeah, avoid that, and definitely go with a solution from MacMiniVault.com. And if you guys mentioned affordability, and that's something I was really impressed with. That's the other reason that I was really impressed with their offering, is that I had researched other options in the past. And I encourage you, listeners, if you've researched other co-location facilities in the past, to really check out MacMiniVault.com, because it's just a lot more affordable than I thought these solutions would be. For example, their full-on enterprise plan, very generous, unlimited monthly transfer, 1 gigabits per second bandwidth, automatic emergency loaner Mac Mini, perpetual hardware warranty. Not to mention they include Watchman monitoring with this, and it's $49.99 per month. You can save 10% if you pay annually, and in addition, you can save 75% off the first 3 months if you use coupon code CCP sent me. So go to MacMiniVault.com and use CCP sent me as your coupon code when you sign up. Great service, supported by great people. We highly recommend them.
So I have a client who isn't doing managed services with us. It's a legal office, and they're one of the few clients that I have that went to the Apple store, and you can appreciate this. And they were sold a Mac Mini server because it could do all these wonderful things like CardDAV and CalDAV and do website hosting and do email and do file sharing. And he called me in and he said, I need you to set up the server. And I'm like, oh, okay, what services do you want to turn on? And he said, all of them. I want all of them to run. And so,
even if I don't need them.
So he's been hosting his website, and he's been running the Apple Mail server, among other things, among the other services as well, for the last couple of years. And we talked to him about managed services and talked to him about risk tolerance, and he was like, "Nope, just call me. If there's a problem, I'll call you." Nope. So, really not the way we want to roll. But and the only reason why I bring it up is he just texted me during our little discussion about Mac Mini Vault, and he said, I find the exact text, but he's basically said, should I upgrade the server to Yosemite? And I had to look at, and it wasn't identified by his name. I just looked at the phone number, and I had to go to my contacts, and I had to do a search for like, who the hell is this? And it's like, okay. So it's like, wow, all I can say is wow.
Yeah, well, that's forever our troubles, is dealing with some of those clients or end users that are just like, ooh, something new and shiny and it says free, even if it's a server.
And I'm really tempted to just go, sure, go ahead.
Call me if you have any trouble.
Yeah.
What the hell?
That's craziness.
Yeah.
How's it going with Yosemite on your machine, Jerry? Everything going okay?
I'm not running it on the server.
No. Yeah, you were running it on one of your workstations, right?
Yeah. So I have a bit of follow up from last week. I was complaining a little bit, grousing a little bit about Apple Mail, and womp, womp, I found it was actually my fault that Apple Mail was not working. So I've been a big fan lately of. I don't load the boat with Apple Mail plugins, but when I find a few, I use them and I like them, and none of the ones we've discussed on the show, but there's a developer and he's been making some Apple plugins, and this one particular plugin doesn't play nice with Exchange. So as soon as I turn off hosted Exchange on the Apple Mail program, the mail flows just fine, and as soon as I turn it on, it just doesn't work with this plugin. And there was nothing in the console that sort of led me to that. It was just mainly trial and error. And I actually reached out to Rackspace, who I have hosted Exchange with, and they were quite responsive, and they actually gave me a couple of test accounts outside of my domain that I worked with one of their email specialists, so that I could sort of isolate it and completely take my account out of the picture and see if it was something specific to my account or something unrelated to that. And it was doing it with their test accounts, and then I knew that it was something that was limited within my user account. And sure enough, it was just this email plugin. So Apple Mail's running good. That's
really promising to hear, actually.
Yeah, and Yosemite for me hasn't really been any kind of a stumbling block really at all.
Well, historically, I mean, with recent versions, Apple Mail hasn't been the best. So if you're telling me that was just a hiccup and you've been okay since then, I mean, that's a big plus.
Right, I was trash talking Apple Mail, and it was my mistake.
No, but if I could see some stability in Mail, I'll be a happy camper.
Yeah, I haven't done mine yet, but I upgraded my Carrio Connect server in preparation to make sure I'd be ready to go. So I think I'm going to take the plunge. I mean, I ran it on a test machine here, but I haven't deployed it on my normal everyday machine. And I think after the show is finished, I think I'll install Yosemite, and by this time next week, hopefully I'll be ready for another live broadcast. That's the real test.
Well, I installed it on my test machine, aka my wife's MacBook Air, and she's having no problems so far. So that's good.
So this is the way you like to relax, Joe? Is just install operating systems? And
yeah, exactly. I do that in my spare time.
By the way, Joe, I know you're running a Crash Plan server, and so am I. And Crash Plans isn't quite ready for that yet. So they're a few days away, but they're working on it. But they're not ready for Yosemite. So any folks out there with Crash Plan servers aren't ready to go yet.
You mean running the client software on Yosemite or server?
Client software seems to work with my Crash Plan server, but my Crash Plan server is running Maverick, but it's not ready to go on the server side.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wouldn't upgrade my server machine anytime soon. But actually, just on that topic, the newest I guess Code 42 platform, as they call it, the new Crash Plan, and it also includes SharePlan. The dashboard's really cool. If you run a Crash Plan server, definitely get up to date because it's some really cool stuff.
The price points on that are a little bit higher than you would want them to be, possibly to offer it as a service to other clients.
The SharePlan, you mean?
Yeah.
I haven't looked in the pricing of that yet, but yeah, I mean, it kind of follows on our conversation last week of these, various private cloud offerings, as they say. And there's one new one in the mix here, thanks to a friend of the show, Mark Fuccio, pointed out that Connected Data just announced Transporter Genesis, which is their business offering. And, of course, Connected Data is the company behind Transporter. And, this is like just a consumer level sort of, shared data system that many people know about. Well, they have a business offering now, and they're actually, I guess they were purchased by Drobo. Are they kind of like a subsidiary now, or what's the relationship there? Do we have any idea?
I think it's a completely independent company, but they're like a sister company.
Okay. Yeah, because it's interesting because it's very similar. It's like they're still releasing new products, namely this Transporter Genesis, which looks pretty interesting. It's like a rack-mounted transporter with a bunch of internal storage and, or space for internal storage anyway, and like a self-hosted private cloud, basically.
Yeah, and there's some built-in solid-state storage as well, like you say, for some sort of a headroom for an operating system, and perhaps some files. I don't know.
Maybe cache. I don't know.
Yeah. What's nice about this particular concept is, as opposed to what we were just talking about with a company like Crash Plan, is where you're with the Crash Plan product, you're paying per seat and you're paying a certain fee to keep that on an ongoing basis. Where the nice thing about this Genesis product from Connected Data is they're just saying you buy the hardware from us, and once you've got the hardware, the software is free, and there's no recurring fees that you have to keep your cloud, your private cloud going. And I really like that. I think that's just really appealing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people, still understand the concept of like buying hardware and owning hardware and just being like entitled to use it. Right. A lot of people balk at the whole subscription game. So,
well, not to mention having your stuff out there in someone else's quote unquote cloud. So the fact that you can protect it in your own data center is very appealing to a lot of people as well.
Yeah, and again, for a commercial product, whether you're running your own Crash Plan server, you're actually buying the Crash Plan product, and you're storing your data on the Crash Plan or the Code 42 servers, is that there is this, among the big players, Dropbox, there is this race to the bottom where they're giving you more and more storage and you're paying them less money for it. So it's kind of diminishing returns in that sort of landscape, whereas I really like the idea of just internalizing that infrastructure. And it's interesting because there's all these different models that are out there. Just a moment ago we were talking about hosting your server in the cloud and moving the services out of the building, and then we have this conflicting argument where we're saying no, we want you to internalize it so that your data is safe. So it's quite interesting time.
Yeah, I mean, this one of the things I really like about co-location in general is that it's further kind of separation from, like any one company. I mean, sure, you're paying for the co-location facility and you're relying on the co-location facility, but they don't have any insight into your data, or they don't have their hands in your stuff. It's like you've got a machine that you can do with what you will, and so it's a level of it still provides that level of comfort that like you own the stuff and you can set it up the way you want and control it, but they handle like all the infrastructure stuff. So I think it's kind of a good balance to have that. The only difference is like with something like this transporter Genesis, it's a big, it looks like a 2 or 3U rack mountable solution. It's not the size of a Mac Mini. So, if you want to co-locate something like that, you're taking up several units or whatever of rack space. So, that has to be paid for, and it's going to be a little bit more expensive than just hosting a Mac Mini. But it's, there's something to be said for that too. I mean, if your client wants the benefit of a private cloud, but they don't have the facilities for it, maybe something like this is an option in a co-location facility.
That's a good point.
Jerry, what was the name of the Apple Mail plugin you're talking about, if you don't mind? Morgs was asking in the chat.
Well, we tend to talk about this company every week. So big fan of the mail plugins from Chunghwa Soft. And the new one that he just released, which just seems to be a little bit buggy with Exchange, and I sent him some notes and some console reports, so he's working on it, is the Evernote plugin that he's made. It's called Evermail, and basically it's a little button that sits inside your toolbar in Apple Mail, and if you tap it, it basically syncs up the piece of email with one of your Evernote notebooks. And it's a really nice little utility. But
so he's in the process of updating that now?
He's working on it, yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
You're the kind of guy, Jerry, my old boss would have said, you've never met a plugin you didn't like. I had a client like this where just, like in Safari, there's just like a series of little icons that I am not familiar with. And he's like, Safari does this thing where like the screen just like freezes and then it like updates like JPEG, compression artifacts are like all over the screen. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, it could be any of those things up there, like. It's like extension.
Pick an icon.
Yeah, it's like a conflict catcher, like a conflict catcher for Safari, or for mail in this case, I guess. Actually, Alan pointed out in the chat as well that there's some software here from Little Known Software is the company. They have a mail.app plugin manager, apparently. So, Jerry, maybe you want to get your hands on that.
Report back in a week.
Yeah, I have a client who's got some big mail stores, and she's using mail tags and like swears by mail tags. And anytime something goes terribly wrong with her mail, it's usually some sort of connection is broken between mail tags and her mail program. And we find that we're frequently rebuilding the envelope index, which is about, in her case, 60 minutes of billable time just to rebuild the envelope.
That's brutal.
I have some weird ones like that too. I have this one client where her mail P list, like every once in a while would just, I don't know, like go crazy. And she'd call me and be like, I don't know, my mail's gone again. And I'd connect. And sure enough, there's like no accounts configured in mail. I'm like, oh no, like no accounts are configured. All her mail was like, 2 of her accounts were pop. So it was just always like, well, okay, it's not gone. Like the mailboxes are still there. They're just not showing because mail doesn't know that it's supposed to show those accounts. So then I go in her Time Machine backup and I find like an old copy of her mail P list from like 2 weeks ago and put it in, and then it would work. It's just like eventually just, stops working. It's just really weird situation. Eventually I think the solution was upgrade to Mavericks. So yeah.
That's funny.
Weird recurring issues. It was like 3 or 4 times this happened over the course of like 2 or 3 years. So it's just like, it's so weird. It happened again. I thought I fixed it. Yeah.
This has absolutely zero to do with mail, but I ran into a nasty troubleshooting thing that I wanted to quickly mention just in case it happened to anybody else. It had to do with iMovie. I don't know how familiar you guys are with iMovie, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert in that area. And we had an issue where we migrated an account and whatever. Long story short is that account couldn't open iMovie. I mean, they would open it, they'd click on all projects, and the whole damn thing would freeze. So we went through every sort of iteration of trash and prefs, clearing the saved application state, going into the caches, everything. Just nothing would work, to the point where we had to clear out the projects from the iMovie library. And then, of course, iMovie would launch, but without the data. So I figured I would throw this out there because I spent a good amount of time trying to sort this out. And in the end, if you right-click on the iMovie library, you can go into the package similar to iPhoto and other applications. Mm-hmm. So I went in there, found the projects. They do live in there. And each file is a .iMovie event file. What I ended up having to do was create new projects and open up the old iMovie event file and copy and paste the contents into a new .iMovie event file from this new test project that I created. And then I saved it, closed it, and reopened it, and voila, mail had mail.
Boom.
Boom. Yeah.
There you go.
iMovie had the project sitting right there for me, ready and waiting. It was pretty insane that's what we had to go through to get it going.
Jerry, what are those 5 iMovie plugins that you recommended? That sounds like a really heroic kind of solution there.
That was a nasty one, man. I don't know. Have you ever guys run into an issue where like you had a corrupt Word document and you could copy almost all of the contents out of it into a new one and it would just work after that? You ever done that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thought process I took there. I was like, well, what the hell? I got nothing to lose. Nothing's working. So
just dive right into the package.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of problems that make me really worried about like iOS, like having to, like eventually we'll have this level of corruption in iOS and the solution is just like, well, just delete everything and start over.
Yeah.
Because there's no you can't like modify the files that are being restored into your iMovie, container or something like that on the iPhone or iPad, right? I mean, it's like all or nothing when restoring a backup. So
for the most part, yeah. I mean, there are some apps that you can get in there and mess around, but I wouldn't dare to go too deep into that.
Right. So it's I don't know. It always occurs to me. Then again, I think, man, have they really made these kinds of improvements? Because I rarely have the situation where I have to like use a brute force method on an app. I mean, the fear is like an app that doesn't sync with some service where you've got like a backup you can restore in a different method, I guess, without having to delete, just like start over from scratch.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, our troubleshooting steps within the apps of the iOS devices is pretty simplistic. That's where you're kind of going with that, right? It's just like, what can you do?
Yeah, right. I mean, you can remove the app and that'll remove the data, and then sometimes throw a reboot in there. I think that can sometimes change things up. And then just download the app again and install it and then like reconfigure it. And I mean, luckily most of the stuff now syncs with some back-end service and you just like reconfigure syncing and it works. But, something like that, it's just like, yeah, what would you do in that situation if you just, if I don't know, if brute force solution is pretty extreme. So
it is. On the iOS side, by the way, one of my guys sent me an interesting article about screen recording from your iPhone or iPad when directly connected to your Mac. Apparently, if you use Yosemite and iOS 8, you can use QuickTime. And from within QuickTime, when you choose new movie recording, instead of using your iSight camera or something, there's a little drop down. You can choose your iOS device as your source.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so you can generate instructional videos to clients in terms of configuring a VPN or something like that, which is probably really, really helpful. Last 24 hours, anybody have any experiences with Passbook and adding your credit cards for Apple Pay?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Silence. Crickets. So I added 2 credit cards to Apple Pay, and it was really cute the way it worked. You just basically take a photograph of the credit card and put in some key data, and it basically syncs. It must sync, in my case, with the American Express server, and it added the cards. And what was interesting was I didn't go to any locations that had Apple Pay, although I was at the Apple Store today and I didn't think of it. The salesman didn't think of it. So I didn't pay with Apple Pay. But when you do a charge through your credit card, almost instantaneously, that charge will sort of like appear as sort of like a little quick drop-down message on your phone, like, $16.75, Bradley and Wall Pizza, So pretty cool how responsive it is. And you could tap on your credit card, and if you tap on the info button, it shows you basically all your recent transactions within the last couple of days. So that's pretty cool too. So your digital wallet is here, guys.
Exciting.
Embrace it.
So you're saying that's interesting. I didn't realize it had that feature to kind of sync back in the other direction. Like you merely added the card to Apple Pay, and now you get alerts on your iPhone when you use that card, even just swiping it.
Exactly. Yeah. Going through the drive-through at Taco Bell. You hand her the card, she runs the swipe, and boom, Sam. It
Stop
shows
stealing
up
my lines, Jerry.
$5.34 appears on your phone for a minute. So it's pretty cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. It looks very promising from all accounts. I mean, it looks like they really nailed it, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and it seems like the 8.1 upgrade went pretty smoothly for most people without much of a hassle. I am getting calls now in the field, as you guys are probably too, as well, with clients just asking us, should they be upgrading to Yosemite? The ones that we haven't turned off auto updates.
Right.
I have a feeling this go around I'm starting to get well-trained clients because I'm getting less of those calls than I did last year with Maverick. So hopefully they're listening to my advice at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've had the same experience. I don't think I've heard from one client yet about Yosemite. So yeah, that's good. I mean, they'll still get themselves into trouble, or maybe they've installed it and it's been a smooth process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of little gates that they have to sort of run through, in terms of syncing and signing in with Yosemite. And I would imagine that some of the clients that I would know that might do this on a self-directed basis would still get a little tripped up by the verbiage. Should I click this? Should I not click this? So I think in the weeks to come, I think we'll have our hands full.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to make an upgrade process into like a minefield. I mean, there's always like, even iOS 8. Do you want to turn on iCloud Drive? And it's like, and they just don't read that. Like, well, you can't use iCloud from any of these other devices now. It's like they just proceed. No problem. Or the good old fashioned multiple people sharing an Apple ID situation. I've had a few of those recently too, where like everybody's phones are ringing. It's like I'm getting a call from my daughter, and like there's like 3 phones in the house that all ring. Whatever. It's like, okay, there's like a couple ways you can solve that. Have you guys seen that yet? Like with the whole
yeah, sure,
yeah, the iPhone cellular calls and FaceTime and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's just another case of that going with the Apple IDs. That's been, forget about it. Although I have been doing a lot more with the whole Apple ID for families, setting that up, and that's really turning out to be a good solution for a lot of the families I work with. I don't know if you guys have been doing that a lot more, but I certainly have, because especially the request to buy and all that stuff, it's really working out for the kids and the families and the parents to be able to share the Apple ID information or the app information and to be able to approve purchases by their kids. Yeah,
that's interesting. I haven't had any hands-on with the new family sharing. And what I did was alerted to, and you can verify this, Sam, is that if any one of the individuals had a gift card, they could have that. The gift card doesn't necessarily go on the main account. It could go apply specifically to that individual in that sub account.
To that kid's account, yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because I was asked that specifically at another client site a couple of weeks back, and that's really something I think a lot of people will appreciate.
Yeah,
that you can gift your children or the other members of your family these gift cards, and it can just stay resident on their account and not just go into the main account.
Yeah, kids don't have to learn how to share anymore. It's great. No, I mean, I've had that question for years as well. Like, my son got a $20 iTunes gift card for his birthday, and we all share the same account. How do I prevent like my daughter from using that? Well, I mean, if you add it to the account, it's just like in the bucket, so you really can't you can't do that. So I guess the advice used to be like wait until your son wants to use it, and then you can add it to his account and then spend it, basically. Add it to the shared account and then spend it, right, all at once. But now it's each kid has their own App Store account, and they can add their own, funds to that. And then the family sharing works by sharing using the same payment method, right, among all the different accounts.
Right. You can be the parent or the adult in the situation. You have your payment method, and you can decide if the child is going to have to request to make payment to make purchases, or if you just let them do it, but it would still share the singular source of funds.
Right. So you're the gatekeeper.
Right.
Right. So that's the solution to everybody has the same Apple ID. And then the purchases can be shared as well, right? When the daughter buys something, the son can, listen to that same music or whatever.
Yeah. Music and apps.
Okay. And then how does that affect the device limit? Because it's the other question I had with clients, and it's still a 5-device limit, right?
Ooh, interesting question.
No, I think I don't believe 10.
It is.
I believe it's 10.
Well, okay, this is my real question. So how do you explain the difference to clients, right? There's the 5 computer limit, and then there's the 10 device limit, right? And the 10 device limit, it used to be that you could have any number of iPads, syncing over the wire with a Mac, and they didn't count against your limit to the number of computers that can access that content, as long as they were syncing over the wire, I guess, or I'm not sure if that really came into play. And then you have iTunes in the cloud, which has a limit of 10 devices accessing the same purchases. So is that basically it? You've got a 5-device limit, a 5 computer limit, and then a 10 device limit, and the computers are a subset of the number of devices, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how that game changes with technically different Apple IDs. Are you still under that same hard limit? Because each person could have 2 or 3 devices,
right,
in the family. So I don't think we've hit that limit to even be able to test that. But I wonder if it's the same value, because I would think that would hamstring a lot of people if it's still a 5 or 10, depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. Because if each user had their own Apple ID, you could have 5 members in the family, right?
5, right, and then but each Apple ID can have 5 computers, right, for iTunes.
Right.
I think that still applies, so it would exponentially grow depending on the amount of users and family sharing. Because I can't imagine a 5-person family is stuck all of a sudden at 5 computers.
Right.
So I haven't hit that limit though.
Right. So I'm curious about how that would work, because it wouldn't be, it can't be a multiple. It can't be now you've got 25 computers, sharing the same content, because each user has their own 5 computers limit. So is it that you can't share purchases among the different Apple IDs unless they're authorized for the other one's account?
No. Well, no. I mean, so what are you asking? If you turn on family sharing, then you just allow them as a subset of your account.
Right. So the parent's account, can authorize purchases or allow purchases from the sub account.
Right.
The sub account buys something. Does the parent's account have the ability to, play that song, let's say?
Yes, they do.
Well, actually, that's relevant now anyway with songs, because it's all one big bucket. But I mean, in other words, there's no more DRM per se. But let's say with the case of an app, so the parent can automatically download the app by virtue of family sharing, right?
Right, exactly. You can when you go into your purchases section, you'll see purchases by you, and you can change that drop down to say purchases by another family member.
I played simple caveman on all of this.
Well, here's my reading of it now. Maybe it is limited to music and apps, right?
As far as I know, yeah.
And we all know there's no real technical limit on the number of Macs that can be authorized for purchases, right? Technically.
I
mean, legally it's 5, right? But technically. Right. And music has no more DRM. So actually, is this just an irrelevant question? Because
maybe we're dancing in a circle for no reason.
I just want to know what I'm allowed to do, Apple. Just tell me.
Everything.
Yeah. So John Schwen, who's in the chat, pointed out to us that Chris Espinoza, who, by the way, was Apple employee number 18, I believe, check your Apple history facts, was answering questions about sharing on Twitter. And I believe Chris had a hand in sort of fleshing out some of the very questions that you're asking. So he might be a good source, Chris Espinoza. But thanks for that, John.
Number 8. He was number 8, and the other thing is that's the other well-known fact is he was.
It's only off by a factor
10 years, and he was 14 when he joined the company.
That's so awesome.
So there's nobody that's going to ever beat him. I mean,
there's some really cute pictures of him when he was really young. Yeah, pretty awesome. So there's company loyalty for you.
Yeah. Wow. So, anybody going to MacTech conference next month? A couple weeks from now?
Can't say that I am. I'd like to go one of these days. I know I keep saying that, but I'm not going to this one.
Yeah.
And a lot of our friends tonight are partying it up over at Jamf conference, the Jamf Nation. So shouts out to all the peeps over there. And Luis, if you're listening, we need you. So contact us.
We're going to be reaching out to you, Luis, and hoping to have you as a guest on a future show. So listeners, you can hold Luis's feet to the fire on that if you'd like to hear him again. It's always great to hear Luis speak. He's got some great things to say, normally around managed services, which is a topic I think everybody's interested in all the time. So we hope to have Luis on in the near future to discuss managed services again. So we'll be reaching out. One more thing just to throw out there. Did you guys see this thing about, I read an article about the Chinese government trying to perform a man-in-the-middle attack on iCloud.com?
I just saw that in my news bar. It popped up on my computer right before the show. I haven't gone into it, though. Do you have more details on it? I
mean, I read the post on greatfire.org. I guess it's a site that discusses the Great Firewall of China. And there's a lot of just like, I don't know, some things I can't read basically in Chinese, but there are some sort of like evidence posted by various users, wire captures, something showing the self-signed certificate that's been used in the attack, connection logs and things like that, trace routes. So it looks like there is some evidence. I can't quite parse it myself, but essentially what's supposed to be happening is that, a user in China tries to visit iCloud.com to log into their email, let's say, and they're actually presented a self-signed certificate if they're using the normal means to connect to load iCloud. And so, for example, if they use, I guess this site is saying that if they use the very common browser, which is supposed to be like a secure browser, it will accept the self-signed certificate without, telling the user there's anything wrong. Now, whereas if you use something like Firefox, it will say, this doesn't match. The certificate that you're being presented doesn't match the host name you're trying to access, basically. The standard warning we're all familiar with. Whereas if you use what's called, I guess, the Chinese 360 secure browser, which is not, secure.
It's the one I use.
Yeah. Right. Can't go wrong. How many plugins do you have in that browser, Jerry? You gotta put in the security plugin. I think you're lacking that, but yeah, it just accepts the certificate and it'll therefore connect to iCloud. And then if you type in your password, of course, your password goes to the man in the middle, so to speak, and then that gets forwarded on to iCloud and authenticated. And so we all know how man in the middle attacks work. Anyway, it seems like it's a legit thing. I don't know, kind of egregious.
So you're leaving us on an up note.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that this kind of thing can happen. But I guess if you travel to, just in general, maybe it's like, use a VPN service. Just don't connect to, even SSL protected services unless you trust the WAN connection you're using. And frankly, this is another great use for co-location facility, not to, promote them too hard, but MacMiniVault.com. Throw a Mac Mini in a co-location facility like Mac Mini Vault and just run VPN services on it and, send out your traffic from there. So you've got a nice US IP address wherever you are in the world.
You should also take note if you really want to, send all traffic over the VPN connection, because I don't think that's by default enabled.
That's a good point. Yeah, you've got to do that. And of course, then you just test it by going to like whatismyip.com or something and finding, it'll tell you your IP address is the IP of your co-located Mac Mini, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So
that's a great use case.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, again, thanks to the sponsor this week, MacMiniVault.com. Check them out at MacMiniVault.com and use coupon code CCP sent me for 75% off the first 3 months. You have basically nothing to lose. It's a really, really cheap price. We highly recommend checking them out.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds. Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins